What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of FSG's Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B. And folks, thanks so much for joining us as we dig into another set of trends, another industry, another area of focus for the FSG team as we explore tips, tricks, and strategies for the larger world of commercial electrical contracting and downstream, how y'all listening often interact with these various touch points, right? Whether we're talking lighting in a facility, whether we're talking remodeling, whether we're talking safety and security implementations, you name it, the FSG team has the thought leadership to guide you through it, and of course the solutions and services as well. Make sure you're heading to our website, fsg.com, for more information about our commercial electric, lighting, and smart control technology for commercial buildings. Again, fsg.com. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for more information and more thought leadership, of course, from the FSG team. All right, let's dive in. I actually teased it out here a second ago, but today's topic is all around lighting fixtures, right? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a piece of construction that often gets overlooked until it doesn't and becomes a priority. And that would be, again, lighting fixtures. Lighting fixture packages aren't just about picking bulbs and picking literal fixtures, right? Choosing these packages and being intentional around lighting fixtures helps save time. It helps cut costs on overall builds, helps hit deadlines, and delivers on spaces that truly shine, pun intended there, right? But as these types of projects get a little bit more complex, we're talking tighter budgets, evolving energy codes, smarter buildings, evolving technology, the right lighting package can make or break your success. And choosing that lighting package can be a bit convoluted. How do you know what your facility actually needs? How should the use of that facility, the demographic of people in the facility, some of the variety of lighting needs, the region you're in, how should all of these things impact your lighting fixture approach and strategy? Well, today we're going to give you a better playbook for how to make sense of lighting fixtures in your builds and how you can better weigh your own situation so that you make the right pick. And obviously, FSG is going to be here to share the tips and tricks and to be a partner in that decision-making moment for your build. So here to break it all down for us and to give us some more thought leadership on lighting fixture packages and how to make, again, better sense of choosing the right lighting fixture package for you is Mr. Leon Mowadia Jr. He is COO, Chief Operating Officer of Lighting Distribution at FSG. Welcome, Leon. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Pleasure getting to sit down with you and pick your brain here. Before we jump in, I want to start with your story here. This is going to help our audience better understand the perspective that you're bringing to the table. How did you get involved with lighting fixture packages, right? Like, what was your journey into being COO of Lighting Distribution at FSG? Give us the elevator pitch and how that connects with the actual expertise you'll be offering on the podcast here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in lighting my whole life. Was Thomas Edison in my fourth grade science fair, so I think I was pretty much set for it.
Yeah. There was no turning back after that.
There was no turning back. Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Would have been a football player, right? Had to be Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
But no, so I wound up joining my father's business, family business, and then we merged it in with a local business, Bernie Erickson, who you've had on another podcast at another time. We then merged in with FSG. I've been with FSG now for 18, 19 years. And about 12 years ago, we acquired a company in New York City called Summit Lighting. They were a lighting fixture specialty, company. They had it down. Lighting fixture packages they had down. We were doing it nationally for our national accounts, but they had the construction side of it. The expertise, the design, the value and engineer side, they really had that down. So we acquired that company, and for 10 years, right up until COVID, I ran that branch. So really got to know the ins and outs of New York City construction. Being a Jersey guy, that was an experience to learn that you think you know everything until you really cross the water and cross the Hudson. So learned a lot, but that really helped bring the expertise to FSG, where now nationally we already had it, but now we've taken it to another level.
Hey man, when you're locked in from 4th grade, that means you're the right guy for our conversation here today. So pretty cool. Thank you again for those insights and background. But let's get into it, right? Again, lighting fixture packages. For someone who's maybe unfamiliar with that industry jargon, what are we actually talking about with a lighting fixture package? What is involved in said package? And does this differ a lot from selecting fixtures individually, right? I guess hone in on the package element here and what we're talking about.
Yeah, so, the lighting fixture package is everything from the exit signs and the emergency lighting, which have, aesthetically not as important, obviously, all the way to the decorative products and everything in between, from the lay-ins in the ceiling to the pendants to, to trough, everything you would need in a lighting package. By putting it together piecemeal, you don't take in the entire environment. You don't take in, you don't really get to know the aesthetics that are really needed in the site. So that's why there's a lot of times there's architects involved, there's lighting designers involved, engineers get involved at one point of it. So we really try to, when you look at it, it's an all-encompassing lighting package. It takes in the entire environment of a project. So it's not just this piecemeal, go to Home Depot and buy a bunch of things for a house where every room looks different. You want it to flow. You want it to have that design. But again, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. So what is the true design intent of a project? It could be a warehouse and office space. That's down and dirty. That lighting fixture package is pretty simple. But it also could be a high-end office, Class A office space in New York City that's trying to differentiate themselves because they're a financial institution and they want to look different. We actually did it here, lighting distributors in general and contractors in general, which is what FSG is. The facilities are usually, basic facilities, square boxes that have warehouse and offices. We've changed over time. We've had lighting showrooms built, and those were designed, design studios in New Jersey here. And this is just to explain kind of how the world is changing after COVID. We built a state-of-the-art facility to get people to come back to work. So this facility does not look like a normal distributor. This is truly, this is truly a state-of-the-art facility. And that's what a lot of people are going towards. So the lighting is just as important as the flooring and the paint, the paint samples and everything else. It's really, really important to have the right lighting involved.
Now tell me a little bit about how these packages have changed over the last several years. You kind of mentioned this a little bit, right? When we're talking about a lighting package or a lighting fixtures package, we are covering the whole scope of lighting that a facility is going to need. And when we think about the way that Industry 4.0 and smart building trends are shaping the building inside and out, that means lighting fixtures are probably getting some new bells and whistles themselves. So I'm curious, how are some of these fixture packages evolving? Right? How was the strategy you had to give even 5 years ago a little different now today?
Well, the beauty of it is LED. LED has enabled lighting manufacturers to do whatever they want with fixtures. I mean, from being able to have a different aesthetic to having different spreads on without changing everything in the fixture, or just having the ability to do things you were never able to do before. Being able to color change, being able to change as with controls and with the different boards, LED boards that are installed in a fixture. As the sun goes down, the light color changes on a fixture in an office to keep it at the right, the right color temperature. So there's really, really a lot they can do, and it changes moods and it changes themes and offices and environments, and they're not so static as they used to be and not so industrial looking. Same thing with retail. You're able to really capture floor space and capture setups in retail locations with really, really, creative lighting and creative ways to light them, where in some cases you don't even see the light source. Yeah. There's really some interesting things they can do now. The last 5 to 10 years have been huge advancements in lighting.
On some of the previous episodes of the podcast, we've had to hone in on very specific industries to make this a little bit more actionable. I'm curious if the same kind of granularity applies here when we're talking about lighting fixture packages. Do you find certain industries benefit more from approaching lighting fixtures in this package route rather than going the individual route per need? Or is this just kind of a blanket approach that is working for most any industry use case? Break that down for us.
Yeah, I would say, commercial and retail are the ones that, from a package side, because you're taking in the entire environment. If you get into and hospitality, of course, as well. But when you talk about like a hospital, you're not trying to have an environment at a hospital, maybe a certain area of a hospital, but not the entire package of a hospital. You have a lot of different things. There are packages for those, and they're very important fixtures. They're vital in operating rooms and color temperatures and everything else. But when you really talk about what you're trying to achieve in retail and hospitality and in commercial, that's where you really try to get the design intent of the facility. And, what are they really trying to accomplish? And that's where you come up with a true all-encompassing lighting package.
So let's talk about impact here a little bit. I like that you mention that the industries that benefit the most from a package are the ones that are thinking about lighting as an integral part of the entire space and the entire experience of the space. Obviously, that matters for any use case. Even lighting in a manufacturing floor, you have to be thinking about how are the shop floor techs going to be engaging with this lighting? How will it make their job a little more straightforward, right? But when we're talking about, or safer, exactly, right. When we're talking about retail and hospitality, you have the added layer of consumer experience and some of the creative ways that lighting and lighting fixtures can actually drive things like more sales, brand engagement, customer loyalty. You get this experiential marketing layer that now has to be thought of from the very beginning by your contractor and contracting team, which is pretty cool, honestly, to see that experiential push make its way all the way up the chain. But I'm curious if you could give some examples here, stories out in the field of how you're seeing teams strike the right balance between performance, aesthetics, budget, and overall experience when they're putting together a lighting package. Right. What's an example of this done well?
Yeah, we have a very large financial institution. It's one of our accounts, and their problem was they didn't have any consistency in the fixtures. They would set the package up, but then they didn't push it through to the end so it could be value engineered and replaced. They can go and save 8%, 10% by going and downgrading certain fixtures in there, and it changed the entire aesthetic of it. So what we really did was help, what do you start from the beginning? What are you really trying to accomplish? Some of it was over-designed, some of it was under-designed. So what are you really trying to accomplish? And at the end of the day, they not buying it through, contractors and buying it from us, we were able to save them a substantial amount of money for each job. Now, lighting is always the headache. You mentioned in the beginning about lighting becomes important on a job when it becomes important on a job. Right?
Right.
Lighting is always the headache. It always flows down to lighting. I've found that. So by having those kind of packages created and having them in stock and being able to ship quickly, it eliminates the problem. So from the design part in the front, knowing what the intent is, where things are not going to be substituted, helps keep the design intent of the project. And then when you're able to deliver it on time, that pulls through as well as saving money, saving energy, keeping sustainability. Everything that you're trying to do, it all was pulled through in that scenario at 100 to 200 locations a year.
Right.
So that is one of the biggest wins that we've had when it comes to really understanding the customer's needs. And they started off saying, we're going to start you off with 10 locations, and literally turned the fire hose on within 2 months because things were just going in the right direction. So
that's a good sign.
When you do it right, it works.
Yeah.
That always goes right, but that one went right. So that's a good one. It's been a 5-year journey so far, and it's been great.
Yeah, and I mean, the scalability of that example, I think, is one of the things that is most important to call attention to. The fact that fixture packages can be designed in such a way that it's easy to deploy them across dozens and dozens, potentially hundreds of locations, and expect a similar, if not almost identical, outcome for that holistic experience for employees, for facility managers, for customers, right? To have lighting that takes all those moving pieces into account, but doesn't have to be treated as this prolonged, customized process from start to finish, I imagine saves a lot of headaches. But,
Absolutely.
Speaking of that customized layer, or maybe more of bridging the contractor and sort of execution of these fixtures side of things to the design side, right? What does that interplay look like between design teams and construction and contractor teams when it comes to lighting selections, right? Are there typical challenges you find that come up when it comes to lighting selections and having clear communication across need, design intent, and execution, right? And where do you see things like lighting fixture packages helping bridge those gaps a little bit, as well as obviously, consulting from an FSG?
Right. Usually in the beginning, everybody has great vision, right? They want this amazing lighting package that is going to just, bring everybody in. It's going to blow away everyone that walks into a facility. Then you really got to get into what is the budget, because that's usually the holdup on a project. Is this design came out and it was great, and oh my God, it's 50%, 40% over budget. So it's really tying everybody together from start to finish on you can achieve a lot and not have to buy the most expensive fixture out there.
Right.
So it's really, what are you trying to achieve? And again, especially if you're scaling it and you're going to, 100 to 200 locations, it needs to be affordable, and it needs to be something that makes sense in the overall payback of the facility. So, or of the restaurant, or of the, the hotel, or anything else like that.
Right.
So it's really getting in on that front end and starting and understanding what is the budget and what is the design intent. Like, what are you really trying to achieve? And there's a lot of ways to do it, but if you just give free rein to an architect or a lighting designer, it's going to be a great facility, but it will be very expensive facility. It will look it, and it's great, but not everybody has the money, especially right now. Everybody's looking to cut back right now and trying to figure out, with tariff issues and everything else going on, kind of what are they going to do. So that's where you really got to just understand that from the beginning of the project, from inception all the way through. So there's no blips. And so by the time it gets to the contracting side, the one thing you always have to think of as well, and we always do tie this in, is how hard is something to install?
Yes.
Right? There's a lot of things. Flangeless fixtures are like a nightmare for a contractor. Beautiful because you don't see anything, but nightmare, that sheetrocker is charging double, to
Right.
get that done. So it's all those kind of things. You got to just understand the entire scope of the project and how it's going to evolve, and make sure everybody's under the right understanding of kind of what the whole project really is, to really understand and make it where there's no blips along the way.
Speaking of the construction process, how does having a lighting fixture package from the get-go streamline the construction process, especially when we're talking about, let's say, dozens or hundreds of similar builds? If you have an anecdote to share on this, that'd be great, but just help ground for our audience some of the tangible time and cost savings that they can realistically expect when they are building off of a package versus treating each location as its own lighting design endeavor.
I mean, it's what I was talking about before, kind of with that financial institution. We have
Right.
other ones as well. It's by having that package preset and either owner supplied, where the customer the end user is buying it direct from FSG or distributor, or even if the GC or the EC is buying it through the distributor, it's already set, pricing's already set, the bidding process is over. You're cutting out 90 days right there in a project. So for that contractor, being able to call up or release and say, here's our counts, here's what we got, here's the date on site, and we already have everything already stocked, it eliminates the problem. You're 98% set on that project. There's always going to be something custom here or there, custom corner or whatever. But for the most part, it takes away the headache of lighting. And lighting for a very long time, by the time the lighting got released, that project's already starting to be built. You're already behind schedule. So our goal for the last 5 years, because that's what I walked into in New York, is it was always behind schedule. So really, how can you fix that? And we really got closer and closer to being able to fix that by working directly with end users, not cutting everybody out, but saying if we just put this process in place, everybody, it will flow quicker. Everybody will still make their markup. There will be some savings, but there will be, at the end of the day, you're going to have a much more efficient project.
Before we get to our tips and advice, you mentioned tariffs. So I'm going to pull back a little bit and look at the macro view here on a few major trends that might be shaping lighting fixture packages. Let's just start there. Supply chain unpredictability. Since COVID, we've been having a slew of different little supply chain issues, whether that is, port backups or a literal pandemic. Now we have geopolitical tensions with tariffs. I'm curious if any of that supply chain unpredictability over the last several years has changed how teams are approaching their lighting packages today. Are these now designed with these macro trends in mind, right? Or do they not really feel a lot of impact from those supply chain issues because of maybe how varied suppliers are? Give us a little peek there into how supply chain trends impact lighting packages and how y'all are approaching that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they had an impact after COVID. But it wasn't, it was bad, but it was still, we were able to at least, predict some of it when containers fell into the Panama Canal or whatever. We lost a couple projects there, or when they got stuck, the ships got stuck there. We lost some stuff there, but overall, there's always going to be some supply chain issue. I'm finding I've never seen it not happen. I mean, from rare earth phosphor issues on lamps, 15, 20 years ago to what we're going through now with the tariffs. There's just always something, and what I will say is it's such a competitive market now. Lighting is not, it used to be the big three, GE, Current, Philips. GE, Philips, and Sylvania, sorry. Were the three large ones, right? They were the big three. Acuity was the big fixture company. And there were some others there. But now there's a lot more. Everybody's kind of in the same realm now. It's not the big three anymore. And we really have a lot of parity. So we can switch, we can move. There are things that are made in the US that extra raw materials are being brought in by really, really reputable manufacturers that we can partner with. So there's a lot of ways that we can work it. The biggest problem is the stuff that's being imported from China right now, where everybody relied on that. They were the cheapest in the market. Their whole industry changed. Their whole market changed in a matter of a day. So those are the manufacturers that are going to struggle, and they were the ones that were really overly competitive.
Right.
They were just in the market everywhere and really selling at the right price. So that's really where it's kind of flattened out a little bit. But we do have tariff issues going on. We do have manufacturers that are really, really competitive and trying to figure out ways around it. Nobody wants to lose their market share.
Right.
That's really what I'm seeing. They're being proactive. They're telling us what they're doing. They're being transparent. Those are the kind of things where when you have really good partners, those are the partners that are really working with us.
I like that that's really the core takeaway here, because to some degree, supply chain or macro instability is just something to factor into the cost of doing business. There's going to be something that hits geopolitically or infrastructure-wise. It's going to throw a wrench in everyone's carefully constructed plans. But that really shines a light on good partners, good partnerships, a strong channel, right? And the fact that it's leading to more open communication and trust and coordination between those various players, I think is a good sign that the right learning lessons are being learned, right? It's not about necessarily avoiding these issues, but rather how you respond to them, right? And how you arm yourself with the right team to maneuver some of that instability. So love that.
We've been transparent with our clients, right?
Yeah.
This is where it's going. We've had clients come to us and say, what if we just bought everything we're going to need for the year? Can you store it?
Right.
Like, let's get ahead of the tariff situation. If it's going to keep coming, let's fix this. So it's just being transparent from the front, showing cost, being open. Where a lot of times we're cost plus. So we work that out with clients so everybody knows what's going on. So transparency is the most important thing during times of turmoil like right now. So you really got to just work transparency across the board.
Staying on the macro trend side of things, I want to get your thoughts on another trend that's impacting lighting fixture packages. That would be the green trend here, right? Changing energy codes, sustainability goals, the ecosystem of technologies, smart technologies that help capture that data and influence those strategies. I'm curious if you're now seeing more like green packages, or whether that sort of sustainability metric is just being factored into every lighting fixture package as a new foundation. How is that playing into how y'all design your packages and how you work with your clients to meet sustainability goals and, shifting regional energy codes as well, for example?
That's the biggest thing. I was going to say it's a state by state and a regional thing. Everything is sustainable now, right? So, most projects are LED. Every project is LED at this point. So it's how sustainable do you want to get? That's really where you tie in controls and smart building, controls. And are they trying to go for a LEED certification? Is it a well building? If they're trying to get that kind of certification. So it's those kind of things that's when our lighting design team dives in and says, okay, we can really fine tune this thing. Or is it just going to be a really efficient building? No matter what, you're going to have a really efficient building because LED is 90% more efficient than what it replaced. So you're going to be efficient. But it's really, you really got to pull in when you're trying to get LEED certification stuff. There's a lot of other factors. Plus there's, like you said, California's got the strictest codes in the country, or some of the strictest codes in the country. So when you're putting something in there, a lot of different things, a lot of different technologies you have to use on the LED side. If it's I think replacement bulbs now are even gone. They can't even use them. There's a lot of things like that in certain areas that you can't use. So it's those. But yeah, overall, when they really want to get into the sustainability side of a project, that's where controls, that's where smart building monitoring and all of that, and that all comes into play. And that's really where you can take it to another level.
All right, Leon, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up with some quick advice and strategy for our listeners. You've given us a great job here of mapping out how lighting fixture packages have evolved, what they look like today, how they serve different industry needs, and how to start to think about the improvements that a lighting fixture package can bring to your general build and contracting workflow. But now let's get into some, again, actionable takeaways for our audience. What advice do you have for project managers, for contractors, or for client side, the folks that are scheming out a new build of a dozen retail spaces? What advice do you have for them when they're just now beginning to explore fixture packages? How should they make sense of their needs? Right? How do they look inward, look around and say, this is what I actually need, and translate that into a specific lighting fixture ask? What are your tips there?
Yeah, it's getting the right lighting designer to really come up with an architect to come up with what are you truly trying to achieve. Retail, super important on what that environment, they're trying to draw in clients. They're trying to draw people in from the other stores that are in the area, right? So very, very important on what they're trying to achieve. You can't cut corners, but you got to make sure you're getting the right design. So it's starting from the beginning there and getting the right design down, and then working with that team or that distributor like us to be able to say, okay, here's where your budget is going to be, and what is your budget? Here's where you're coming in right now, and how can we achieve that? How can we just make it where you're getting everything you want? You're getting the design you want, you're hitting your budget, and you're getting it on time. Right. So that's really what you want. So it starts from not shooting for something that you're never going to be able to build. Let's get realistic. Let's, get it all down on paper. Let's design what you really want. Then let's hit the budget.
I'm curious too, now that we have those fixture packages available, let's say, and I'm leading on a new build project, what's some advice you would give, for folks who are looking to implement, lighting packages into a future build and still have time to work with designers for there to be more interplay there between the package and the design? I guess maybe a better way to frame this is, do you find that because of the ease of use and availability of lighting fixture packages that now those are influencing the designs in the first place, right? And if so, any advice for bridging those lines of communication early, right? So everyone's on the same page and that you can design based on the wealth of available lighting fixtures.
Yeah, a lot of the time, the client knows kind of what they're looking for, right? They have in their head, like, I've seen this fixture, or I was in this location, or I was at this show, this design show, and I want to incorporate this look into the project. That's where, if they can start with that, right, that's really where you can pull it all together. It's not having the repeating back and forth till you get there. So it's all about open communication. The front end is the most important part of the project. It will, and including having the project manager involved, because then when they get it, they're going to talk about installation issues and everything else that nobody thought of. So it's having everybody involved throughout the process would be the best way to do it.
All right, Leon, we've reached the end. I'll leave things with a final takeaway from you. If there's one major takeaway that you want, contractors, architects, designers, project managers, anyone listening to remember about lighting packages and their strategy or approach to them, what would it be?
Be realistic, right?
Gotta love it. Manage expectations, yeah.
Manage expectations, be realistic, and you can get any design you want by doing it the right way and having the right people involved.
I love it. And it's great knowing that FSG is in their corner, in y'all's corner, right, to help support those kinds of decisions and get the right packages for your future builds. With that, Leon, thank you so much for your insights today. Again, folks, we've been chatting with Leon Mowadia Jr., COO of Lighting Distribution at FSG. Leon, if folks want to learn more about how FSG is supporting these lighting builds, right, and if they want to tap into y'all's array of different lighting fixture packages, how can they get in touch? How can they learn more?
Our website, www.fsg.com. We have a whole lighting section, case studies, videos, tons of things, tons of resources there, as well as an ability to contact us and have us have a specialist speak with you.
Perfect. All right, easy enough. FSG.com. You heard it here first, folks. Again, Leon Mowadia Jr., thank you so much for your insights today. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to future conversations.
Me too. Thanks again. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of the FSG Podcast. If you like what you heard and saw and you want to tap into future episodes, make sure you're heading to our website, fsg.com, for more. Make sure you're subscribing on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. You got to make sure you don't miss out on future or previous episodes of the show. And again, if you need to get in touch with the team, if you want some support on your future lighting fixture packages, hit up FSG at fsg.com. I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and we'll catch you on the next episode.